Internet! Hello, you absolute lovelies. Let's talk all about Eyes of Wakanda. This is going to be full spoilers for the full season as Disney Plus dropped all 4 episodes, the entirety of the season in one day, in one binge. So this is going to be full spoilers for the whole shebang. If you haven't seen the show yet, go check it out. Come back here. Going to talk about the entirety in this one video. If you're new to this page, I cover lots and lots of things. I do movies, I do TV, and I do lots of comic books, the books themselves. I read about 50 to 70 comics a week, and then every week on this page, I give you my favorite 9. I try to make them the most approachable, and I'm going to do a full video about this soon, but we hit 50K, which means 50 comic giveaway. Anyone that is subscribed is eligible. Going to be giving away 50 of my comics to one of you very, very soon. Cannot wait to make that video with you lovelies. Also press a like while you're pressing buttons. And most of all, let's talk Eyes of Wakanda in the comments below. Let's get into it. Full spoilers. Eyes of Wakanda was a show that was greenlit way back in the day. This is a show that was developed a very long time ago, and it's a show that is now getting a kind of unceremonious release all in one day. Originally set to come out at the end of August, I think week to week on August 27th. It then was moved up till mid-August and now is dropping here on the 1st in its entirety after I think 4 or 5 years of being developed. And that is a real shame, because if this show had come out a little bit earlier, I think it would have been able to enjoy a bit more of the Black Panther peak. I think it would have been able to enjoy a week-to-week release and let each of these eras kind of breathe. But I also think this is a show that ties into the world of Wakanda in a wonderful way that hopefully allows us to have a connector setting up for Black Panther 3. This show is bold. It takes place in Wakanda without much Black Panther. This show has different generations of stories, and it ties in a lot of different lore to other lore. And some things are nonfiction, some things are fiction, some things tie into the Marvel Universe, some things are like Achilles and Troy. And so it makes for a really interesting commentary on historical epics, and it adds a lot of weight and history and world building to Wakanda, even beyond the 2 films we've had already, plus the films like, Infinity War, Endgame, that make Wakanda such an essential element. This really makes Wakanda feel like it's been part of our history forever, and that really works. I really like the writing. I really like the themes addressed. I really like a lot of the characters. What was really hard for me personally was the animation. I love the backgrounds and I love some of the motion, but the character design feels very odd to me. It's like the backdrop is almost photorealistic, and there's this beautiful lush painting of some experiences, and then there's some characters that look really anthropomorphic. Some characters look Pixar animated versions of people. It's a very odd disparity between background and foreground. There's a lot of the elements that feel like when you watch old animation and you can tell what thing is going to get picked up by the character because of how it's drawn and some of the shading. And that kept me from being too attached. I really had a hard time personally getting into the show in the first 2 episodes. The second 2 I liked quite a bit. So I will say, as far as the binge model goes, this worked for me as a binge model because I did like the second 2 a lot more than the first 2 personally. So I'm glad that we had 2 hours worth at once. I reacted to this over at Real Rejects, and I definitely was struggling in the first 2. We did it all as one video, and then we talked about the entirety. But the first 2, I couldn't find my way in. I didn't really connect as much in the first video from, deep history and that woman. But the themes I connected to, and the writing I did connect to. So first episode, I love the idea of someone who is a bit of a rebel against a type of cause and against a type of world, and who is very good at their job, but is also not a team player, being hired to not be a team player. And I like the level of distrust and kind of saying like, hey, you're following orders, you're stuck in this world, what is freedom to you? And freedom is a very important conversation. Freedom is something we should definitely address. So I love that first episode's themes about freedom, and if you're following orders and if you're doing this, are you really free? And there is literally someone, this lion guy, like subjugating people and enslaving people and seeing himself as this freedom giver when he's a ruler and a tyrant, and him making, even for a moment, people believe that Wakanda is the problem. And I love that we had this narrator that you're like, which way is she going to go? She rebelled against the Dora Milaje. And I love at the end her not becoming a Dora Milaje and the birth of basically these war dogs, and I thought that was really interesting. And then I love the second episode having that war dog payoff at the end. And we had a time jump and her getting to come back and become kind of this thematic character. Second episode had this Troy Achilles Trojan horse element, and it looked at Wakanda as a bit of the enemy, because if your POV is from the perspective of the Spartans, then you would have a spy in your midst, this Wakandan traitor. You would have someone that Achilles was betrayed by, and I loved him as a bit of an enemy. And Memnon is a character that we've had in, Troy and these stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey. He's a character that is canon. Like, this is a character canon to the original myths, the first written story of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I love incorporating him into the story, but again, the animation, I just couldn't find my way to connect to the actual visuals, so I could appreciate the story and I can appreciate the writing, but those first two episodes, I struggled with everything but the themes and the writing. Third episode, I started to get into it. Third episode, I really liked the idea of the classic history of an ancient race like the Wakandans and the ancient race of basically Kunlun and the Iron Fist, and the blend of an Iron Fist in this world and incorporating Iron Fist's classic, not Danny Rand, but classic Iron Fist to OG Wakandans, setting up before even Black Panther. I really enjoyed that, and I really liked the idea of what these two ancient tribes would kind of have as like, hey, we've had this thing for 1,000 years. This is important to us. Who do you think you are to take your artifact back? And I think it's really interesting tying in the theft of artifacts and what colonizers have done for years with African cultures. And most British museums are just the showcase of thievery. And I liked that we had that conversation of like, yeah, but once it's part of our culture for a long time, like, have your piece, sure, but like, this is ours. And playing around with that conversation that led into the fourth episode, which I also enjoyed quite a bit, of what it means to be your own independent nation and what these artifacts and these identities and concepts are in this new race. And we get a Black Panther from the future that is trying to prevent basically the events of Killmonger from going wrong. Like, that moment is essential. So Killmonger, and I love that the axe, which I recognized very early on, was the axe from Black Panther, which gives us a Black Panther retroactive weight and importance, and how some things have to happen a certain way. And I liked the dynamic between the kid and the straight man and the slapstick. I liked the writing, I liked the themes, I liked the ideas, but again, the animation just really did not ever sing for me. So this is going to be on the lower end of my Marvel experience, just because I couldn't get over it. And so like with What If, the visuals just didn't work for me, so it never got that high in my experience. What If had a lot more problems. I actually think this is better than What If. What If never really was bold enough to be a What If, except for like one time, which was just this crazy episode with Howard the Duck having a baby. But overall, just stayed kind of between the lines, and it had this subplot of Owatu that was really cool and existential that I didn't lean into nearly enough. So What If was a bigger mess. But Eyes of Wakanda, I had a similar thing with, where I love X-Men 97's animation and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man animation, but whatever they were doing, personally, I didn't connect with this animation, which kept me out of it a little bit. So this is going to be in my lower third of Marvel, something that I probably won't rewatch very often, if ever. Something that I'm glad exists, because if people love the world of Wakanda, they've got even more to enrich it. It feels like a comic that is like a trade paperback with 4 anthology stories that are like, hey, do you like Black Panther? Here's some lore to tie you in, and that's what this feels like. And I think it's smart to have and do. But my middle third, so like top third is I want to show people and I'll rewatch. Sorry, I lost my voice. Top third is I'll rewatch anytime. Like, I want to show people this. This is the best of comic stuff. Middle third is like, if I'm doing a rewatch to get to a purpose, I'm not going to rewatch it casually, but something that, is contextually important to a sequel, I might rewatch it. And the bottom third is like, hey, I'm glad it's out there. Not my cup of tea, but no disrespect. And there's only like 4 or 5 Marvel properties at all I think are actually bad. I don't think this property is bad, but it's in my bottom third. I'm glad it exists. I think the writing is exceptional. Kudos to the writing team. Kudos to the showrunner. Kudos to everyone that produced it. I'm glad this show is out there, and I'm glad we get some lore and some Wakandan history, but the animation and some of the style choices didn't sing for me, and the importance of it felt a little tainted by that, which is a bummer, because I really think the release model tainted the importance of the show and the impact of the Wakandan history and all those elements. So overall, this is going to be like a C minus for me. It's probably middle to top of that bottom third. There's 50 some Marvel properties. We're counting movies and TV, so probably around the 17 mark from the bottom, like, you know, somewhere in that 17 from the end. But yeah, I definitely think it's worth watching once. I definitely think it is a really cool, interesting story and dynamics. Rewatchability is low, visuals low for me, and the rest works, but at the cost of those. So let me know what you guys think. I really liked the themes. I really liked the ideas. I really liked the concepts. I really liked the writing. Really liked the characters. But couldn't be higher than a C minus for me because there's a lot of really good stuff out there. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Eyes of Wakanda. Let me know if you're excited for what comes next. I believe Wonder Man is next. Marvel's actually had a pretty good year. I thought Ironheart was pretty great, especially the second half. Ironheart definitely picked up a lot like this show did, where the second half was better. Thunderbolts I thought was fantastic. I really, really liked Fantastic Four quite a bit. They've had a pretty good year. More hits than misses, as with every phase in my opinion, but this is on the slight miss side for me personally, but not at the cost, not because of the writing or because of the ideas, but because of the chosen delivery method for me. So, all right, that is going to do it, you lovelies. I will see you very soon. Subscribe, like, comment, let me know what you thought of Eyes of Wakanda, and I will see you Wonder Man, and sooner. Like, we got a lot of videos. I got a big comic video coming up, and we got reviews and stuff, but I think the next Marvel thing, I think, is Wonder Man, which I'm very excited for. Yeah, I got Abdul Mateen II. It's awesome. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.